So, you're studying English like crazy. You're putting in the hours, but you feel stuck, like you're not getting any closer to being fluent. Well, if that sounds like you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden mistakes, these common traps that keep so many dedicated learners from getting where they want to be. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how you can escape them.
All right, let's just dive right in. Take a look at this number on the screen, 5 to 16. What do you think that represents when it comes to learning English? It's not the number of years you have to study, and it's definitely not the number of grammar rules you need to memorize. Any ideas? Take a second and really think about it.
That's right. It's the number of times you usually have to see, hear, or use a new word before it actually sticks in your long-term memory. And yet, so many of us get so frustrated when we can't remember a word after seeing it just once or twice, right? This gap between how learning really works and how we think it should work is at the very heart of what we're talking about today.
And that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? If we know, deep down, that learning is a process, that it takes time, why do we put all this pressure on ourselves to be perfect from day one? Well, that pressure creates these really powerful psychological traps that can bring our progress to a dead stop. So, let's break them down.
Okay, we're going to start with two traps that have everything to do with how you practice. These are all about the things you do, or maybe the things you don't do, that can keep you stuck at that intermediate level pretty much forever.
First up is a big one, maybe the biggest, the fear of speaking trap. You know this one. It's when you study for months, you learn all the vocabulary, you can understand TV shows, but the second you have a chance to actually speak, you just freeze. All that knowledge stays locked up inside your head.
Does that little voice in your head sound familiar? Yeah, that's the sound of the fear trap. You get so caught up worrying about every possible little mistake that by the time you've mentally prepared the perfect sentence, the conversation has completely moved on, and the opportunity is just gone. So, escaping this trap, it starts with a simple but really powerful shift in your mindset. Instead of seeing mistakes as this big red sign of failure, you've got to start seeing them as helpful information. That's all they are. Every single error tells you exactly what you need to work on next. It's not a judgment, it's your roadmap.
So what's the game plan to get out of this? You need a plan, and you got to start small. I'm talking a tiny goal, like speak for just 2 minutes a day. You can talk to yourself, record a voice memo on your phone, whatever. The goal here isn't to be perfect, it's just to communicate. And to make it easier, start with simple stuff, like talking about your day. Most importantly, find a safe space to do this, like with a patient friend or a language partner, where you feel totally comfortable making all those valuable mistakes.
Okay, the second practice trap is a little sneakier. I call it the passive learning trap. This is when you spend all your time consuming English. You're watching movies, you're reading articles, listening to podcasts, but you never actually produce the language yourself. It feels like you're being productive, but you're only getting half of the equation.
Look, the difference is really simple. Passive learning is all about input, taking things in. Active learning is all about output, putting things out. Think of it like this. You never learn how to cook just by watching cooking shows, right? You have to actually get in the kitchen and start chopping. Well, language is exactly the same. You have to balance what you take in with what you put out.
And here are a few really concrete ways you can do that. After you listen to a podcast or a video, just pause it and repeat a couple of the sentences out loud. That's the echo method. Simple. After you read an article, take 30 seconds and write a quick 2-sentence summary of it. That's the summary method. The whole key here is to find ways to turn every passive activity into an active one.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. We've talked about what you do. Now let's talk about what you think. These next two traps are all about your mindset, which, believe me, can be just as important as your study habits.
First up, we have the grammar study trap. This is the belief that if you can just memorize every single grammar rule in the textbook, then one day, poof, you'll magically become a fluent speaker. But in reality, focusing too much on the rules just makes your speech slow and robotic and unnatural, because you're trying to think like a computer instead of a person.
Look, your goal doesn't need to be grammar expert. Your goal should be communication expert. The whole point isn't to be able to pass a pop quiz in the middle of a conversation. The point is to connect with another human being and share your ideas. That's it.
So what's a smarter way to learn grammar? Well, first, learn it in context. See how it's actually used in real life, in real conversations. Then, just focus on mastering the simple patterns that people use in like 80% of daily chats. And finally, you have to practice it actively by using those new grammar structures when you speak and write, not just by reading about them in a book.
And the final trap, oh boy, this is one we all fall into sometimes. It's the comparison trap. This happens when you see someone else speaking English really well, and your first thought is just to feel bad about your own level. And you know, social media makes this 1,000 times worse because all you ever see is their final, polished performance. You don't see the years and years of messy, awkward practice it took for them to get there.
You have to remember this. Learning a language is not a race. There isn't a single finish line we're all sprinting towards. It's a personal journey. It's like you're hiking your own mountain. And somebody else's path, how fast they're going, the gear they have, none of that has anything to do with your climb.
So, to beat this comparison trap, you have to bring the focus back to you. Start by setting goals that actually matter for your life, not for somebody else's. Keep a little journal just to track your own progress. This becomes your personal proof of how far you've actually come. And then you can use that proof to celebrate every single small win along the way.
And that brings us to what might be the single most important idea in this entire explainer. So just let this one sink in for a second. Practice makes progress, not perfection.
You see, the goal is not to wake up one day and suddenly speak flawless, perfect, mistake-free English. That's an impossible standard, and it will just make you miserable. The real goal, the one you can actually achieve, is to just get a little tiny bit better today than you were yesterday. That's it. That is the entire secret.
So there you have it. That's your escape plan. Remember these 4 traps to avoid: the fear of speaking, getting stuck in passive learning, focusing too much on grammar, and of course, comparing yourself to others. Just knowing what these traps are is the first giant step to avoiding them.
And that just leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Looking at this list, which one of these traps just feels a little too familiar? And more importantly, which one are you going to commit to escaping starting this week? Your journey to fluency? It's a lot closer than you think.